Welcome to Abnormal Psychology. I'm Marley Morrow.
I'm Sean Prober, and today we're going to be going over You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero.
So we both read the book and we both took some notes down. Self-help are very popular books. This is, wasn't it a Times bestseller?
Yeah, this was a New York Times bestseller. It was an interesting read. I'm not that familiar with the genre of self-help. I think we read a few things in undergrad, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and I guess some things that represented Eastern philosophy, like Siddhartha, that definitely have those tones of self-help, but never really too much in the field.
Yeah, so what I really liked about this book was she references a bunch of different self-help books. So, giving us some pointers that she's obviously went through this process of going to seminars and reading a bunch of books, and gives us what she's learned and
Skim the cream
yeah,
off the
exactly.
top. It must have taken, and the amount of things she referenced, you would imagine that probably read hundreds of books, or at least parts of it in this. So yeah, it was a good one. We started on off, and kind of the point that she makes in the very beginning before taking off on your journey was this concept of accepting that anything is possible. And for the most part, we all limit ourselves. Everybody has standards and different standards, but you put yourself, most people put themselves in between maybe one or two kind of categories or possibilities of whereabouts they're going to fall. And especially when it comes to mental illness or anxiety, depression, so many people kind of accept that this is the best that they're going to feel. This is how happy they're going to be. This is how depressed they're going to be. And there's really nothing to change it. And the point Jen makes in this was that accept that anything is possible. Nothing's off the table.
Yes, and I think it's important to always be positive and to have confidence in yourself. She talks about that the things that we want are already out there. So if you want money, the money is already out there. If you want a partner, that person's already alive. So what you want is out there. You just have to put your mind to finding it.
And that is the advantage of even the internet. And we're going to have a dream that Marley survives the taping of it. But yeah, we've all heard crazier stories and probably even some of your wildest dreams. We've all heard those stories of somebody being homeless and becoming millionaires, and the man who stocks shelves becoming the quarterback of the Rams and winning the Super Bowl. I mean, almost none of my dreams are that are that intense. Mm-hmm. So accept that this world has offered people endless possibilities, and though it has a lot of horrors that come up, the ability to change everything in a second, to turn a life on a dime, is a real thing. And why not happen to you? It happens to other people.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about standards or your expectations or the way you are. There's so much that we shape when we're young. And there's a great part that really resonated with me on this, where shame is passed kind of generation to generation. There could have been a fault of your grandfather or great-grandfather that passed all these generations into your children. If you felt rewarded by just keeping cool and allowing, not causing dismay with your very anxious mother. Maybe when it comes later in life to your business and to your life, you're not going to kick up a lot of dust, and you're going to just allow people to walk over you because it was rewarded when you were young. And to analyze these kind of lessons is really the key to mental health. It's almost every psychologist would look towards that when we talk about our great theorists like Freud, Erickson, and it always revolves around this unpacking of your youth and figure out where you were damaged and what you could do to move forward, and just inspecting that. That's the catharsis of just inspecting that. You should expect some kind of improvement.
Yeah, and I think when you have traumas, and even if you don't think it was like a major event, if something has like bothered you and you've thought about it over the years, that can still be a trauma. And it's not that you're supposed to, wallow in it, but figure out like how this trauma has affected you, like what kind of behaviors are you doing that you would like to change because of it, and just realize that you can't change the past. You have to just move forward.
You want to hear a funny story about something that I was just thinking about the other day? That came up, but I must have been about 5-6 years old, and my mom knew that we were reading Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in class, and thought, okay, that would be really cool to, I guess she saw it in a flyer or something, to get these Disney on Ice tickets, where they would do it. And I like the story. I thought the story was really interesting and was pumped about it. And I went to school the next day, and these girls were talking about going that weekend or something. I think I might have been going the next weekend. And I said, oh, man, that's really cool. I got tickets to go. And they're like, boys shouldn't like that. Boys shouldn't like that. And like it hits so hard, like you feel so much shame when you're young over like such stupid things. And
it like really affected you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why I started doing kickboxing.
To try to like prove that you were like masculine, because you had this insecurity maybe stemming from this event.
And different event, just different stuff. But yeah, it's funny, even that young, just a little moment in elementary, and that stuff sticks with you. Like it makes a big old place in your head.
And if you think that you're not masculine enough, even in that moment, you'll keep finding things that, support it. If you're looking to see like, people think I'm like too feminine, every like event that maybe you could see that in.
Yeah, for sure. It's always what's that called? Confirmation bias.
Yeah.
That you're kind of never considering the times where you do anything masculine, but those times where somebody suspects you to be too feminine.
That's how I was about being gay.
Yeah.
Any like comment, I'm like, oh no.
It's gonna be super negative. Mm-hmm. Well, you grew up in a really like rural part of Ohio.
Yeah, so like a very Christian conservative area.
So I'm sure. When did you ever first get those thoughts?
I just questioned it because my dad would like make comments, but he made comments to my brother and myself. So it wasn't like, he was just like, are you guys gay? Like, comments like that. And I was like, am I? But I don't even know if I really understood what being gay was, other than that it was like bad.
Yeah.
And that it was like, you don't like boys and that's bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's truly a synonym for negative.
Yeah.
For not doing the
But
right
I don't think I actually like accepted that I really was like gay until like later on.
Yeah.
Like late teenager times.
And I'm not sure when that happened. You do bring all these moments when you're young into that event.
And then you start like looking back and like, well, maybe this was a sign Maybe that was a sign.
Yeah. when for the most part, children do play around with gender norms. I think now it's kind of always associated with trans issues,
Yeah.
but it is very normal that you have these kind of, for boys or girls, that you're interested in different things.
Plus, it's like always changing. It used to be that like pink was the most masculine color. Like,
I thought you were talking
before.
about the musician.
No.
That she was the most masculine pop star.
No. But like
Pink was actually the like a
masculine color.
I guess in Muay Thai a lot of the fighters had pink bands and stuff.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is like socially constructed for some reason. You know, like guys used to wear heels, like women didn't wear heels. And then all kids were called girls and wore dresses under a certain age.
Yeah.
So in a lot of like ways, what we consider as gendered, like your outfit, your hair, what colors you like stuff like that, that's socially constructed 100%.
Yeah. When you're analyzing the problems in your life, you kind of write them down and write down what kind of associates with it. If you're having these kind of issues, kind of write down the first emotions that pop up, and you're going to find that many times that is something from your youth that you've held on to and now is causing you damage, and kind of let it go. If you have guilt, point that Jen makes that I thought was great was that just because you feel bad about something doesn't make you a better person. Like if you're making the changes, if you truly do feel bad about something and it's appropriate, maybe an apology is okay. But for the most part, you have to accept that, yes, something bad happened. You might have done something to harm somebody or hurt somebody's emotions. And at most, you have to say to yourself, well, this isn't worth me ruining my entire life. I'm not helping anybody by just dwelling on this negativity for the rest of my life, and to kind of move forward.
Yeah, I think she said the same thing with forgiving people and how being angry and holding like resentment towards people, it really just hurts yourself. Because you're unhappy and you have all these like negative feelings, and that other person doesn't have those. You're holding them, so it really doesn't do any good to be angry at people.
Yeah, you're giving them almost too much credit. You're empowering them to still have that kind of control over your life.
You're allowing them to get you emotional and to have bad feelings, which you bring into lots of different parts of your life. She talked a lot about how like energy, positive energy.
The source energy.
Yeah. So like giving and doing good stuff for other people brings you positive energy. And when you hold on to like negative energy, like anger or greed or things like that, you're bringing that negative energy into your life.
Yeah, and I think just kind of to focus on those things as you're getting older takes time to really realize that there's this great quote about when you give somebody something, it's impossible not to receive something back. That was pretty, and it's so true. There have been times where I felt very negative. You know, you're having a bad day in the city, and I'd give $1 or $2 to a homeless guy. And you don't kind of puts it in perspective. You see them, you have this instant kind of good feeling just by putting something out there. But it doesn't really, it doesn't have to be a material thing. I find that sometimes in this world there are so few times that you get complimented, or you get somebody to just say something nice about you. Yeah. That kind of give that to somebody, give that person a call that you care about. A family member, you'll feel better afterwards. You'll always feel better than holding those kind of guilts. Now, Jen talked about having a role model during this time, kind of a transitionary, kind of the vanguard model of communism, that you have this political party that takes over for a little while and puts everything on its back and progresses it towards the true utopia. But that's kind of the role model concept, that you select somebody who's done what you want to do, or has some kind of trait or characteristic about them that you'd like to emulate. That's the great thing about our world, and like we were saying with the internet, that you're able to look at all different people and learn the stories of exactly what you want to do, and you get the benefit that you don't even have to start from scratch. You kind of have a blueprint ahead of you. If somebody's doing something that you want, well, look what they're doing and copy it. And obviously there are details and your own great originality, but you have a lot of blueprints ahead of you that you can say, well, that's what they're doing, I can do it too. Why not you? Is kind of a question that I've asked myself a lot.
About becoming the person that you have to be to accomplish your goals. So if you want to do something, what kind of person would you have to be to accomplish that goal and become them?
In our media, there are so few characters now that you would say, I really would like to be. I think in a business meeting, I would like to be Don Draper. But as far as a husband, I don't think that it's a good thing to be. So, you don't have to take a full person, but if there's something about somebody that kind of gives you a marker of what you would like to convey, kind of think, what would they do? What would Jesus do? But this is what would
Dolly Parton do?
Yeah, what would Dolly Parton do? That can't possibly steer you wrong. Kind of not related, except through Dolly Parton. I heard a quote by her that was very funny. She said, I never take it personally when I hear dumb blonde jokes, because I know that I'm not dumb and I know that I'm not a blonde. So kind of an exercise that was recommended in the book that's interesting is look at things like you were an alien who just came onto the planet, and you're looking around and you're seeing all these options. What would you like to do? What would you do if you, let's say, we both have masters in psychology, so I think we're always kind of, for years, it was hard to break out of, like, what exactly should we do with it?
Yeah.
And you're kind of latch, and, maybe you want to do something completely different. So sometimes education and experience kind of limits what you will want to do at that time. But if you could just start fresh and look at things like, what would you want to do? I think that's a great way of...
Like when you're daydreaming, what are you daydreaming of being, and how can you get to that and make it a reality?
And part of that is all the discussion about manifesting. We were talking about that earlier. But this idea of through, she recommends vision boards, kind of putting a house or putting a location or putting a salary or putting something.
I've done that multiple times where I've put like move out or buy a house, and it's actually happened. So I think, I don't know if I 100% believe in manifesting in general. Like I would like to, but
it's not passive.
Yeah. I also think seeing that every day and having something like stick in your mind and you think about it all the time, it's more likely that you're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I've put some things on my board now on my quests to it, but I think to the point about not being passive about it. Obviously, if you just envision these things and sit around and do nothing, it's very unlikely that anything's going to happen. when it comes to criticism about self-help books, I think that's most of what I hear when people talk about it, that you can't, what was the book, like the gift or the secret,
Yeah.
which was so popular, of bringing this positive energy
The law of attraction.
the law of attraction. And it's so true that your confidence, of course, brings more confident, better people to you. It's going to help in these kind of situations. It's a positive tool, whether or not there's some kind of metaphysical proof of it. But it's a beneficial thought. So when you combine manifesting with really hard work and really clear direction, then you're going to have something great. And I think it is a very good tool. When you're down or not feeling encouraged or not feeling inspired, a recommendation that came from this book was to think about a time in your life where you did feel that you had a lot of drive, or did feel really confident. Most of us, even if it's not that common, can think of a moment that you felt like you were on top of the world. And to kind of think, how were you acting? You could almost serve as your own role model.
Yeah, like what was going on? Who were you? And if you've never felt that, then you know what you've been doing hasn't been working.
Yeah, you kind of, when you're feeling like that, you have to see what you can get away with, was the concept. And think about that with your own work, not in a unethical way, but why not call some people up, try to get that 12th client, why not get X amount more a week by reaching out and putting yourself out there. I know in business that's one of the hardest aspects for me, because I've always kind of have a tendency for not full introvert. I don't think anybody's a full introvert or extrovert, but talking to new people is not the easiest task. And part of business is talking to a ton of people constantly, and new people and continuing relationships. And it's a big part of kind of holding myself back was because I feared having these conversations with people and feared asking for a little bit more. But when you're healthy and when you have more confidence, you need to assert what you deserve, and actually sometimes just demand it if somebody's not going to you.
And if you are fearful, it's important to look at like what is the fear. If your fear is talking to people, what do you think that they're gonna see that you don't want them to see? Like, are they going to think that you're stupid or you don't know what you're talking about? Like, is that the fear? And if that's the fear, then why do you feel that way about yourself?
Yeah, that was another part that I loved in it, about what are your self-sabotage stories. So, I mean, I might have even just done it like, I am typically an introvert and this sort of things. Like we hold on to these stories for years. And they, once again, to go to our original point about not accepting that everything is possible, like what are these thoughts that you're limiting yourself? What are these limiting
what
thoughts?
What are your excuses?
Yeah, exactly. And what makes them comfortable? Now, if you've been doing something since you were a child, you're getting something out of it. Or you'd stop. There's some comfort in these kind of stories. Maybe if I'm saying that I'm more of an introvert, then I don't feel as bad about not making those extra calls or not going to that other convention. I used to do some music, not trying to book more gigs, any kind of thing in a lifetime. You tell these things and they somewhat make your life easier. So that's a great exercise to kind of write down your limiting beliefs and then write, what about them do you like?
Are they protecting you? Like, even if you are depressed or you think that you're lazy, by thinking that, like, how are you protecting yourself? You don't have to get out of your comfort zone. You don't have to worry about embarrassing yourself or rejection. So it's just important to see, like, what you're doing. And if you're working on a project and you keep stopping, like, for me, it's writing. I have all these new projects, but when it comes down to creating the content, I start getting, like, hung up.
Yeah.
So it's like, why am I doing that? Probably because I'm afraid that people are not going to like it or think that I'm a bad writer. So it's just important to see, like, what's happening and what you're stopping.
Yeah.
Or why you're stopping.
Yeah. Analyze in your process when you start to have the most of these doubts.
Yeah.
And kind of figure out why you're feeling that way. And it's going to make a world of difference for sure.
Even the excuse like that I don't have enough time. If you really care about something, you always have the time. Like when things come up, or if you have to get something done quicker than usual, like you'll get it done. So I think we were talking about that earlier. Like if you say you have a day to get it done, you'll get it done in a day. But if you say you have a week to get it done, it'll take the whole week.
So it just determines what night I'm going to start it. If it's 2 weeks, I'm going to start that day before the second.
Yeah, I think she was even saying, like, to punish yourself, like to give yourself a timeline that is obtainable, but, aggressive. And then to punish yourself, like donate to a charity that you don't like. Like if you're a liberal, donate to like a conservative or something like that. So that you make sure that you get it done in this time frame.
That's great. I think she had a friend that would serve as kind of an escrow to hold it and then go for it. So yeah, figure out what kind of works for yourself, and kind of look at those times when you stop and say goodbye. Thank you, I guess, for serving a function for a little bit. And that just kind of goes into kind of one of the later points of the ability to let bad things go and not spiral. So there are so many times in a day, and what does this go to? The old expression of like, it's not the act, it's how you react to it. There's so many times in a day that you can call it quits.
Yeah.
And kind of end it, and just because something negative happened, and to work on that. That's a huge issue, I feel like, with me. I'll have a negative thing, and I'll be like, my mom did this 30 years ago. I let this person down a decade ago. And it just, it goes, and like, I think to have a good control of yourself, to be able to say, no, I'm not gonna go crazy on this. That's a difficult challenge for a lot of people, and something that takes time.
Yeah, and she was talking about how when you think something really bad has happened, think about something bad that happened a year ago or more than a year ago, and can you get upset about it now? Like, do you care that much about it? Did it really impact your life that much?
I tried to get an apartment years ago, and they actually turned me down because they wanted a lot of money. I forgot like what the percentage was. Oddly enough, it was a cheaper apartment than the place that I was moving from, but I wasn't getting enough that I could prove in a paycheck. And they said no. But so I moved to this other place, and that's actually where I met my wife. So it's like the stuff that gets you upset in that moment, you really don't know how these kind of things turn out. Because who knows? I could still be single, and that would just be horrible.
Exactly.
if I didn't get turned down. Because
you always have to see the bright side of things. And I mean, some people get upset about that now, like with toxic positivity. And
I haven't heard about toxic positivity.
Well, people are like, why can't you be upset? Like, everything doesn't have to be like, oh, like, be positive and whatever. Get over it. But I think that you can sit with the feelings and kind of deal with it and then move on. Like, you don't have to not be upset at all, but you don't have to like linger on it either.
I guess one of those things is that's where, to me, that's where substance abuse really comes into play. Because that's where you're never actually figuring out the coping mechanisms. And I find that leads to certain levels of stagnation. You know, you don't obviously judge anybody for any kind of use of anything, but I know with even myself that there were times especially when I was younger, that you get sad, you have a drink, and it leads to very bad habits, and it also leads to not building up the mechanisms to cope with different issues.
Yeah.
So to your point about just to not wallow, but take a minute to really analyze the feeling and accept what happened, and
maybe even what you can learn from it.
yeah, why it makes you feel certain ways, what about it, and to continue. So I think that's everything with This Is a Badass, or
How to be a badass.
How to be a badass. Definitely a recommendation. I don't, like I said, I haven't read too many in the self-help genre, but I thought it was a really, really easy book to get through and entertaining. I imagine that Jen Sincero does some public speaking and is very engaging with that. So
thanks for joining us.